Okay, and we're recording.
All right, awesome. So I'm logged into a demo account, and as you can see at the top here, I have the INR box, and it's really a two-part. The bottom one is more of a configuration area, a one-time configuration thing where you will basically configure all kinds of drop-down elements. So what that means is before we go live, we're going to have to get a final list of some of these drop-down elements from you. So we'll make sure we have that. And then at the top portion is the regular user area. So to be able to make a call, record a new call, you will basically come here and click on the new call link. And then once you click on that, it's going to give you the call recording screen. And then you would most of the time start with a search so that you can find the person you're looking for. I'm just gonna, this is a demo data, so we did a lot of testing. So I'm just gonna do a blank search first and see what I have.
The demographic type as person, is that in relation to like person versus caller, or what would be some other things that would show there?
A demographic type could be a person or an organization entity. So within person, it could be the call subject, all kinds of person entities. So when it's a demographic person, it is really trying to differentiate between an organization or an actual person. But caller, contact, subject, they are all kind of within the person category.
Okay.
So once I have selected the subject for this caller, and using that search function, definitely, it pulls the data that the system already had about that person. As you can see here, it just grabbed the name. If it had other bits and pieces like gender, Medicaid, date of birth, and such, it will pull those as well. So it does that, and then also by default, the system assumes that the subject for the call and the caller for the call is the same person. So if you don't do anything, you're doing just a subject, just a search on the subject, pick a person from that search result. It's going to populate both the subject area and also the caller area for that. But you do have option if you actually get a call where the caller is reporting about a different subject than himself or herself, then you can come here and then you can change the caller. And it's the similar search function you have here. So you can do a search and you can actually say Jacob is the person who's actually calling about Mary. And then you have a bunch of these drop downs. And as you can see, almost none of these fields are really required. So you can start with very basic. It does ask you to put a call source. And again, the system by default picks phone as a call source, but you can do other like email, fax, in person. So if you got a fax or in person, you can pick those as well. But by default, it will select phone as a call source. And then you got this other caller type. call priority. This one I think we basically took from the drop down we saw during your demo. And then outcome. And again, by default, the system will pick the start date and end date of the call as the current system date and time for the users. So it does that. And then here you can actually put a note about the call. Actually, you have both, like if it was the caller was describing an event, you can put it there, and then you have like additional comment box that you can put here. This one focuses more for if it was a specific event, but like someone saw an unattended vehicle with people in a parking lot and they want to describe that as an event, report that, probably something like that. They can come here, event, or someone saw his or her neighbor with the fall or something, they can put that. So there could be all different kinds of events they want to put in here.
I would say that that whole event part is something that's going to be new for all of our staff, so that might be something to really touch on during the training, is to make sure that everyone really understands the difference between the event documentation and then the comments box below, which would be similar to where we just put our current narrative.
Okay. Does that seem like a logical distinction to you, Jennifer, having a place where you can describe an event, as it were, separately from the call but related to it? Does that make sense?
Yeah, I understand the thought behind it. It's just something new for us, and I think our staff might have a little bit of trouble kind of breaking apart their narrative to kind of document the event separately.
Justin, do you think, like from a screen positioning perspective, comment should come at the top and event at the bottom, because comment might be most frequently used? Any opinion on that?
I think that might be. I've got a few thoughts which we can talk about when we get together on sort of some of the layout stuff. But yeah, I think that might well make sense that the event is down at the bottom is almost a different thing.
Okay.
And again, I think, Jennifer, that's a really useful piece of feedback, and as you're going through this stuff and sending us suggestions and sending us comments, suggestions on how we can train about things are really important.
So they can put very basic info there and then save that call. And then the other sort of new concept is how we're grouping the calls. So you record the basic call, and then if there are additional, like a task or assessment or stuff like that, then you need to kind of put that in a group. In that case, you'll click on New INR from that screen. And this becomes like the group title. So if there were, like, later on you receive follow-up calls about the same person, but the same question, you can kind of put those together. So it becomes a running list of all the relevant calls regarding Mary's service query. So here you can already see what we recorded in the previous screen. And then you have option to add tasks and assessments. So click on add a task. Then you have the task details screen. So probably like if it was a call for an already in-service person, then you'll just come here and I understand you will assign a task to the person's case manager for a follow-up call. You'll put whatever comment is appropriate for that. You'll put a due date. We're still on that same overall INR group screen, where at the top you still have the basic call detail, the demographic at the top, and then the call detail. So like I said, it's a grouping mechanism. So if there are more calls, they will all line up here. And then you have a task sections. So all the different tasks that you are going to create as a part of this call is going to line up here. And then finally, you have option to add assessment. And assessments that you're going to add here are different than the NRI class of assessments. So if you're going to do like a choice or a home care, you're going to have to do that from that NRI section from your first page. But if there are like other, I know there are at least half a dozen other assessments, if not more, which are more like information gathering. You don't really run an algorithm or expect an output once done with that assessment. So those kind of assessment we talked about, we're gonna create questionnaires for those assessments, and they're gonna show up here.
Is there any way possible that Interact, the choices at least, could be included in this assessment section?
I guess that's two thoughts on that. And, first would be, I wonder if the sort of let's call them questionnaire assessments that we're putting here, which I think there's a need for, and there's a group there, if they would be better called screenings rather than assessments, to sort of almost differentiate them from that. I can absolutely see the desire for, as it were, having a link to the Inter-RAI stuff, particularly the choices one. I think one of the things that we're going to have to think about, and this is a sort of my first question is whether we should call them here assessments or screening. And then what we're going to have to think about in general, as you're looking at all of this stuff and you're giving us feedback, we want absolutely all your feedback. Even if it's like, you know, it's fairly far out there, but like it would be absolutely incredible if we could do this, because sometimes some of those conceptual things are really useful for us moving forward. But what we really, the key we need to know if you're looking at something is this a blocker? Is this, particularly right now, you know, is this something that will stop us going live, that we can't, you know, we can't possibly go live without this? And we sort of need you to think fairly hard about that and make sure you're giving us, you know, no, there's just, you know, and there'll be things that you come across that are just plain wrong, or they're just going to get so misused that it's not going to work, and we have to change them before we go live. And we've probably found some of those already. And I would sort of put that wanting to link to the inter-RAI stuff probably in the not blocker thing. Again, you know, we can sort of get into how important or more important or less important are some of those, but unless you thought, you know, there's just no way we could possibly do our job without that, we you know, that's something we can certainly look at later. There will be a lot of stuff that we do come to, but again, that's the, at the moment, the big differentiator we want is that, wait a minute, we can't possibly go live without this. That makes sense.
This is Jennifer. I guess I don't see this as being like an absolute, you know, must-have before go live, yep. But I think it's going to be a significant inconvenience for especially our intake staff to have to navigate away from this call to go into the inter-RAI section to complete the choices and then come back to the call and document the results of the choices. The language between assessment and screening, I don't know is going to be real clear for them either, because a lot of times we refer to the choices as a screening tool, even though it's technically an assessment because of the scoring mechanism. So I don't know that choosing language either way is going to be real clear for them, at least up front.
Okay. That's good. I just wanted people to go to the right box. Sometimes it's one of the reasons we sometimes make words up. Almost is just so we can talk about something and be clear. So okay, we'll continue to look at that as we go through. Back to you, Suzanne.
No problem. So we just have like some random questionnaires here that we added for demo, but we should pretty soon finalize the list of assessments, questionnaire-like assessments that we want to have in here, and then sort of also finalize what goes in each of those questionnaires. You can put an assessment date, next assessment, assessor. So once you have selected that assessment, then you get this open button. You click on that. That brings up the questionnaire, the assessment that you're gonna. These are just random questions.
I think this would be a good place to put our initial eligibility screening that we removed from the South Dakota choices that asks about their income and resources and their, you know, disability and how they meet those. I think this would be a really good place for that piece of it for sure.
Okay. So once they're done answering all the questions here, let me answer a few more. So once you're done answering that questionnaire / assessment and hit that save button, it kind of becomes part of that same INR record. As you can see, you're on the assessment screen of that INR record, but all the answers that you added to that is now here. I'm just going to hit the update button.
Back to Jennifer's question on the assessment. What you just demonstrated, it doesn't seem like they would actually have to go to a different screen. Or are you saying our choices screen won't be available in that drop down?
No, the one that I did, those are questionnaire-like assessments. So the choice and the home care is not going to be available right on this screen. So they're going to have to, if they are, right, if they are looking for choice or home care, they're going to have to go back to like dashboard and then come to the NRI.
Okay. Well, I would agree with you, Jennifer, that it's not a stop for go live, but it'd be something that they're going to want in there eventually.
All right.
Just a call or
So,
question, since you have it up on the screen right now. On that call priority, is it really supposed to be low income? Is that what we have in SAMs, Jennifer?
Yes, that's what we have.
Interesting. Okay.
And maybe that's something we can relook at. I always thought that was a little bit.
Well, I would think we just low, medium, or high or something like that. I think it's weird that we have low income.
Yeah, it's low
and then
income,
just another, what's that?
It's low income, not low income, or unknown income. And I don't know, maybe priority isn't really the right word because, you know, I don't know, maybe we need to look at that language a little bit.
Okay. And then the only other note I jotted down is when you were talking about the journals, that's kind of the wording we use for SAMs, but in THERAP, is it not case note?
Case note itself has like its own module. So if you're doing detailed case note, you can go into that module. But here, if you're doing notes as a part of the INR call,
yeah,
which is why we added like a little journal entry box.
Oh, I see. Okay, my bad.
Right.
Thank you.
No problem. So again, I'm still on that INR screen. You got the demographic, you got the call list, you got the task list, you got the assessment list. Okay. And at any point, you can edit, you can complete a particular item, like a task or an assessment. You can do those. Each of these has its own complete status. Or you can overall complete the entire call, as in that entire INR. So now if I go back, actually, because I know that the INR group function is gonna be a bit of a new concept for the users. So that's where you may need to address some of the training scenario. But I was just gonna do like one more call real quick to show the grouping mechanism. So let's say for some reason we got another call regarding the same subject. Maybe this time the person herself is actually calling. And save this call real quick. And if you remember last time when we were saving that call, we clicked on the create new INR, but this time we're gonna actually group that under an existing INR. So we're gonna hit that follow-up INR link. So when I hit that follow-up INR link, it actually gives me a list of all the different call groups that we have created so far for this subject. So at the top, you can see the call group that I created earlier. And then at the bottom, there are a few others that we created while testing. But I'm just going to pick that first one and group it under that. So I'm going to click on Add to INR button here. So once I do that, then I'm on that INR group page, service info regarding Mary. And as you can see now, in the call list, you have 2 of these calls.
So Todd, is there any way to link calls for 2 different consumers? For example, someone calls in on a married couple Right now, we just enter a separate call on each one, and they're not connected in any way. Is there some way that those could be kind of connected through here or no?
As in two different subjects within the same INR group?
Right.
The way it is designed now, when you see that list of INR groups from the previous, it was actually bringing up for the same subject. We didn't consider like it could be different subjects for the same group. I'll take a look at that, like what's involved, if we want to actually combine multiple subjects within the same INI group. I'll take a look at that. The current design really groups under all for the same subject.
Okay. And again, that's not something that we have now, but it might be useful, especially, those situations where, you have two people in the same household, and other than just writing it in the narrative saying, please look at call on, spouse, whomever, it would be nice to kind of officially link those. Or if you get a referral on a person who has a caregiver, there's a potential for the caregiver to become a consumer under their caregiver program, and then for the other person to become a consumer under another program. So it'd be nice to kind of link those together. But again, it would be kind of an enhancement for us.
Okay. We'll make a note about that. So now you have, like I was saying, both the calls under that same group, and you can perform any actions. You can add more tasks to that. You can add more assessment to that, or you can just complete the whole INR. So one thing we talked about, I think, in one of our earlier demo was when you complete an INR, if there are tasks and assessments within that, it all gets completed due to that action. So that is something we wanted to make sure you understand. I mean, you can complete each of the elements separately. So just want to make sure that's addressed during training and everything. Like if you hit that complete button at the bottom, it basically assumes you have completed all the tasks.
Okay, I still have a lot of concern about that, because if there's an outstanding task for a supervisor, to assign something out regarding this call, and somebody accidentally, completes it, that person is just not going to get served. And I think that's a huge risk for us. So I think that's something that we really have more discussion on.
All right. Do you think it should be the other way around, as in if they click on that complete button at the bottom, and if there are incomplete elements above within this INR group, the system should basically stop them, saying you cannot because you have incomplete elements? We can run and edit that way as well if you think we should. We just thought like it might be convenient for them to complete everything in one go, but we're not sure what the appropriate business process should be.
Yeah, I think there should be some kind of warning message, because again, with our conversation before, I don't know who then would be going back and completing these calls. The intake staff won't be doing it. If it involves, the supervisor and anyone that has a task associated with this call. I just don't know who is going to be going back to do that follow-up to complete it. So my request up front was that we have some way for, our intake staff to designate that this call, that their responsibility in this call is done. So their part of it is complete. If there's something that they need to come back to this call later, that they can signify that, yes, this is still an outstanding call, or there's something I need to finish on it before I can hand it off, that can somehow be designated. But I don't know that this feature is really going to do that for us, at least the way I understand it.
Okay. Okay. We'll probably need to have more discussion about that. That was basic INR call recording functionality. The only other thing, when you create a task, the other thing I wanted to show, when you create a task, you get a dashboard count here that tells that you have pending task. And
I had a question on that, Shazad. Is that count specific to the logged in user?
The count is specific to the logged in user, where the logged in user is an assignee.
Cool.
So you have to be if you remember when we created the task, we assigned a person for that task to be completed. So if you are assigned for that task, only then you get that as a dashboard count.
Okay, so it only shows the tasks that are assigned to the user and not tasks that they've assigned to somebody else, just to clarify.
Correct, correct.
Okay.
It is the person who's responsible for completing that task.
Okay.
And it is really more of a reminder. So once you click on that, you kind of go in and find that exact INR record, and this is a read-only view of that task. So at the top, it gives you the demographic, and then it gives you the task description, like follow-up call. So as part of that task completion, you may actually need to go into that INR. You can do that, make changes in that, or you may actually need to make a new call. So a task may involve anything within that. So you're able to navigate through the entire INR group to take any action or record a call or something else.
I would also add that so that count shows up for, as it were, any tasks that have been assigned to me. But if I'm on my dashboard, I can search for tasks, and I can search either by assignor or assignee. So I could say, show me all the tasks that I assigned out to other people, or I could say, show me all the tasks that were assigned to Shazad. If I knew Shazad was off sick and I wanted to see all his tasks, I can search for them by the assignee as well.
Done and done right here. So when I did the search, it actually brings in, because if you think, Justin, it's all individual caseload.
Yep.
That's most of minor user functionalities. So when I go from a dashboard count, that's showing task I'm responsible for. But if I'm doing a search, then I can see the whole list under my caseload, all the tasks. And you can also do like a specific so you can do that way as well. Hello? You still there?
We're still with you.
Yeah,
Okay.
I'm still here.
Okay. So that was a task functionality, and then you also got you can do search and specific assessments. Again, these are questionnaire-like assessment that you saw as part of the INR group. But if you're gonna do choice or home care, then you're gonna go to a different area that's built for NRI stuff. Other than that, there is also that section for INR demographics. So when we did that call, we did that for an existing individual. So if you are actually gonna do a search for a person that didn't exist, you could have done that. So if you do a search, didn't find the match, in that case, you will actually create from there. And whatever search criteria you put there, it populates, and then you can create the whole person demographic record. You can fill up those. And then you can create a call for that person. So you can either come from a new demographic. If for some reason you want to create the demographic first, you can come from new demographic. It will give you the same option. Or you can come from new call and then search for a person, which I think could be the workflow most of the time. You'll receive a call, you'll do a search. If you don't find, then you'll create a new demographic record. But for some reason, if you knew in the first place that you're going to create a new demographic record, you could have come from here. It gives you the same impact, really. There are few things that we haven't achieved in this cycle that we know we'll have to do pretty soon. And that is like the INR demographic that you create, it doesn't create any IDF today. And in the same way, if you create an IDF, it doesn't create any INR record today. So we'll have to have that automation achieved at some point, because there could be a scenario where you are actually doing an intake for a person from the IDF section, create an individual data. And later on, you receive a call for that person in INR line. So you may need to do a search for that in-service person. So that synchronization of INR record and IDF, that is not available in the current version. So we'll have to achieve that soon enough.
This is Jennifer. I do have a question about that. Federal reporting ends on September 30th. So we are going to be half in SAMS and half in THERAP. And having to pull out that demographic information, I don't know how in THERAP that will work, if it's kind of pieced between the IDF and between different pieces and different records, how we can all pull that into one cohesive like list or document, if it's all spread out and there's pieces that aren't communicating to each other. I think that might be concerning kind of in the immediate. I know that, you know, it may seem a little bit more urgent than it actually is, just for that purpose alone. I'm not sure how that will work.
Okay, we should definitely talk about that and come up with a plan prior to your September deadline, so that because there are a bunch of things that those demographic record that you provided us as part of the IDF import. So we're going to do an IDF import for them, and then we're also going to create like an INR demographic for those. I think there are like 5,000 something. So we're going to put those in both places before we go live. So you're going to have INR record for every single active individual, in-service individual that you're going to import as an IDF. So later on, like July 15, you get a call about a person who's in service. You're going to be able to do a search from the INR screen for that in-service person. Because like I said, when we're going to import that 5,000 something IDF, we're also going to create corresponding INR record for those persons. The trouble is, once you go live and then you create a new IDF in the system, it doesn't automatically create an INR record. So you create a new IDF in the system July 15, August 1, you receive an INR call for that person. it's not gonna find that person. So we're gonna have to run some kind of, I have some ideas, like we're gonna run some batch migration script, maybe nightly basis, which takes a IDF record and then creates an INR for that. So we do have some plans about that we're gonna address and should be able to take care of that prior to your September deadline. The thing that I'm not sure about is we're not doing any SAMS INR import. So if you have INR data in SAMS today that needs to be part of that report, I think that's a tricky area where you kind of need to have part of the report from SAMS, part of the report like June 1st and later report from THERAP, and prior to June reports from SAMS. Because we're not doing any INR data import. We're doing all the demographic data import. So if you give us demographic data as part of SAMS demographic data that you want us to import as an IDF, those are all going to be part of the THERAP IDF and INR starting go live. The thing that we're not going to know is like however many INR calls you receive in SAMS prior to June 1st.
Right, and that would be easy information for us to get. Maybe I'm just confused because it sounded like, you know, once we have all of the SAMS data imported, when we start adding new information in THERAP, like the IDF data, you know, if we have a new call on a person, if the demographics are captured within the call, it's not necessarily going to transfer over to the IDF, which I think is where it will need to be in order for us to extract that for our federal reporting. Maybe I'm not understanding it correctly.
No, I think you've got kind of what the issue is.
Go ahead, Justin.
I was going to say, I think that is what the issue is, and we're working on what the solution. We've got, you know, we'll get back to you before you go live about how we're going to solve that issue. We're aware that it exists. It was more to bring it up and say, yes, we know this is an issue, and we'll have a solution for you.
Okay.
Yes. Huh. I'm just thinking if anything else about INR, or you want to jump into another module. I think we got another 14 minutes or so.
I just have one more question about the INR piece. Could you talk to what would happen if the caller was anonymous, you know, how you would handle an anonymous person?
Okay. So
kind of to follow up on that, I see that you can leave it as anonymous, but if we ever discover that this anonymous person's name is Joe Smith, how we can go back and change that, or if it's once it's saved, it's saved.
okay. So we're gonna create this call as an anonymous one. As you can see, the subject of the call is known, but the caller is anonymous. And then we're gonna go edit. And at this point, you probably know the person, for some reason you have more data. So you're gonna do, let's see. So now you're able to attach a person to that call. And that edit may happen anytime within the life cycle of the call before you complete the call. So you may record the entire thing as anonymous, come back 3 days later, and then put a name behind that. Does that sound all right?
Yes, I think so. And then I think we talked when the consumer is anonymous or the person that they're calling about, it would not create the IDF. It would just be kept in the INR to where you wouldn't have all that extra information you need. Is that still correct?
Yes.
Okay.
That was that. Anything else on INR?
Not from me.
Not from us either.
Okay. Did you want to take a look at either pre-auth or NRI stuff? And Justin, you also mentioned we wanted to check like if LTSS have access to the demo environment. Do you want to talk about that at this point?
Yes. So Tracy is in the process as we speak of setting up logins for you all. And when she sends you an email over with that, that's going to have your login name, your password, the provider code that we're in at the moment, which, as Suzanne said, is a demo one. And then you're going to have this different login that you go in. So instead of going where you would normally go to log into THERAP, not that you guys are logging into THERAP that much, you're going to go to this alpha01.therapservices.net. But again, Tracy will put a link to that in the email where she sends over your login information. When you log in, it's going to ask you to choose a password and stuff like that. Can you just log in for a second, Suzanne?
Sure.
We're also basically setting you up with a reasonable number of admin privileges. So, like, if you wanna go in there, you could actually make other people logins and things like that. And we're, if you want to reach out to me or Tracy or Jeff or Josh, we can walk you through. If you get stuck in just wait a minute, I don't have the privileges, I'm not quite sure why this is working or any of that stuff, we can absolutely do that. We can set up another follow-up call if you'd like one next week, sort of walking you through a little bit of that admin stuff in the background, so that you can do this. So and then to talk a little bit about process. So this is, as it were, this is the first time most of us, other than Suzanne, are playing around with this. I started playing around with it yesterday morning, and I've already got like 3 pages of questions and comments. What the plan is, while Suzanne is working on that sort of initial import, we'll all kind of play around in here, and then hopefully in a little bit, once we've got that initial import ready, we'll give you, we'll refresh this context. We'll kind of wipe all the stuff away that we've been doing, and we'll set up another one that has your actual data in that you've given us at this stage, and looks much more like the real thing. So again, if you can be thinking of things like, I think there was that priority that was about income, and you thought maybe it should just be high, medium, low. If you could think about some of those drop downs and what you want those to be, those are things that we can set up better, as it were, when we do the next one. So this is the first of several go rounds, but I would imagine probably the next ones will actually be with real data that we'll do, not in production, still in this alpha account, but again, it gives us a chance to test that import a bit and go from there. and again, the more you guys can get in and sort of play around with this and kick the tires and ask questions and all of that, the better it's going to end up being for all of us. And we're happy to jump on a call at short notice and run through things if you're getting stuck or if you want to show us things and all of that. You know, the quicker we can get information back to the programmers, the better, particularly again if we're back to that whole blocking thing, if there's anything there with that.
Hey Justin, this is Leslie, and just in trying to figure out time that we could do this call, I looked at our schedules for the next couple of weeks, and you know, it's really tight schedule for these next couple of weeks. So if we think we need a little bit more time, we might want to just think about starting our next Thursday call a little bit early. Cool. I think Jennifer and Beth have a meeting, but I think Beth said they could reschedule that. So if we wanted to start that meeting at say 8:30 and go until, you know, like a half an hour after, I think we'd all be available then. But otherwise, awesome. There's really absolutely no time that all of us are available next week.
And as I understand, you've all got real jobs to do as well. And again, so anything that we can do by email, you know, just sure. Suggestions going backwards and forwards is great. And even if as it were, you know, Leslie, if you're in there and you're like, oh God, I can't work out how to do this, get in touch with any of us, and we'll be happy to jump on set this up on the fly, or just jump on the phone and walk through and making sure you can be as efficient as is possible.
Okay. And then Tracy, for those new logins, are you setting Jennifer Larson up with one as well?
Yes, I can definitely set her up.
Thank you. I just noticed she wasn't on the invite, so I wanted to make sure she was included in that group.
Okay, I will make sure she has that. I'm sending out emails right now, and I will get her a login set up and send her an email as well.
Wonderful.
And Tracy, you know, this is Jennifer with my login. It's Jennifer A. Larson.
Jennifer A. Okay.
Yeah, thank you.
You are welcome.
And like I say, you guys have the ability to do a lot of, we've given you the ability to do a lot of stuff in there, but my general thing I find at this sort of stage is don't spend a lot of time trying to work out something that you're not quite understanding. It's much better use of your time and ours if you just reach out and say, hey, I'm stuck, can you help me? And we'll get back to you as soon as we can.
Okay, so should we just, if we do have a question like that, Justin, you said reach out to who, you or Tracy? Or
I would say, yeah, I mean, if you, and what to do, let's do it this way. We have an email address that will go out to all of us, which is just SV, as in South Dakota, support at therapservices.net.
Okay.
If you do that, then you're likely to get somebody getting back to you really quickly.
Okay. Great, thanks.
Do you guys feel sort of comfortable enough going in there and goofing around and playing with stuff now?
Yeah.
Yes, I think so.
Excellent. We expect you to do nothing else all weekend.
All weekend, huh? I'm sure my grandson won't mind me playing on the computer while he's at my house.
Exactly. Again, if there's any questions at all, just reach out, and we're happy to discuss.
All right, thanks, Justin.
Suzanne, anything else from your side?
No, not for now. Just a quick. We are still waiting on that master provider list. So whenever you get a chance, do let us know. As soon as we have that, we're gonna start working on that. That's gonna require both sides some real work there. Just compiling that list and doing the back and forth. Just making sure you have that in your list.
Yeah, we're still working on it. It's a very time-intensive process to get all that matched up, unfortunately.
I know.
We're working on it for the last 2 days. We hope to have you draft today. Oh, we will get you whatever we have.
Thank you.
Today.
Yep.
That's all, Justin.
Okay, is that all? Thanks, everyone.
Excellent.
Thank
Thanks,
you.
everyone. Speak to you soon.
Bye-bye.
Thanks.
Bye. Have a good weekend.
You too.
You too. Bye-bye.